Okay, so we'll try to record it today, and then I'll try and find a way of getting it to you. I think I'll post it on my YouTube site. So we have about a dozen people here, but we're about 5 minutes early, so we'll give people a little while to get here. So we have 16 people now, but we'd like to have 24, but we might not make it. Okay, good morning. Let's get started with all the stuff we want to look at today. The first thing you see on the agenda, of course, is the terrible news that we have a midterm next week. So that's what you probably want to get ready for. The format of this exam will be exactly the same as the last one. We'll cover 2 of the regular chapters and 3 of the compound interest assignments. So it'll be chapters 3 and 4. And compound interest 5, 6, and 7. There'll be 20 questions, no, 15 questions. On chapters 3 and 4. And 10 questions on compound interest. And you'll still have 3 hours to write the test. And you'll have a 24-hour window on Friday in which to start the test. So any questions you can think of asking about the test at the moment? Okay. June 18th on Friday. Yes.
From the compound interest problems from week 4 to week 5 contain in the test.
Week 4 and week 5. When did we do compound interest number 7? Yes, compound interest number 7. We did that. Oh, sorry. I'm telling you that it's compound interest number 7, but I've made a mistake on the agenda that I sent you out. It's actually, we did 1, 2, and 3. This should be 4, 5, and 6. Sorry about that. Let me. Compound interest 4, 5, and 6, not 5, 6, and 7.
Sir, is it taking place on coming Friday?
Not this Friday. It's Friday, June. Should be June 18th. Let me check. Yeah, June 18th. So it's not this Friday.
Okay, thank you, sir.
So it's the Friday after next Friday. How many questions from compound interest chapters? There'll be 15 questions from chapters 3 and 4. And 10 questions from compound interest, just like the first test you did. So any other questions that you can think of asking about the test at the moment? Okay, in that case, we will jump into chapter 5. We're going to spend, chapter 5 is a very big chapter, and we're going to spend about 3 weeks just dealing with chapter 5. There's five sections in chapter 5. We're going to do trade discounts and cash discounts today. Next week, we'll look at markup and markdown. And then they have something called integrated problems, which is where they take everything from the first 4 sections of the chapter and try to make it as confusing as possible and make ugly questions out of it all. But we're not going to try doing it all in 1 week. We'll just do trade discounts and cash discounts today. So let's share my whiteboard. I'm attempting to record this, and hopefully I'll find some way of getting the recording to you. So first off, let's discuss what a trade discount is. So when they talk about trade discounts, basically we're talking about stuff being put on sale. And it's called a trade discount because it's usually between a wholesale company and a retail company, not between the retail company and the final customers, which is us. So whenever you talk about, or you hear them talking about trade discounts, basically they're telling us something is on sale. So in this question they've given us, determine the net price of an article listed at $618.95 less 21%. So what they're telling us is this thing, what they call the list price, and we're going to use L equals list price. This is the regular price that they've put on it. The reduced price is going to be referred to as the net price, and we'll use N. And the actual dollar value of the discount will be a capital D. And they're going to refer to the discount sometimes in terms of the capital D, which is the dollar value. But mostly they'll give it to us in terms of a percentage, and we'll use the little letter d for the percentage. So it can be a little confusing that we have two ways of referring to the discount. But mostly they'll give it to us in terms of a percentage, and we'll have to, our job is to then figure out the actual dollar value of the discount. So the relationship here is fairly simple. It's that the net price equals the list price minus the discount. And we'll figure out how to calculate the dollar value of the discount. It's going to be equal to the list price multiplied by the percentage. And then they put these two back together. They put this LD back in for D. So we'll get the list price minus the list price times that little d. And then what they do is they factor out the L. So we get N equals list outside of 1 minus D. And it's this equation here that we're going to work with. So let's take a look at this equation here. We've got the net. They're asking about the net price. They've given us the list price, and this is the little d. So what they're expecting us to do is plug this into this equation. The list is 618.95, and 21% is the discount. So 1 minus the 21%, so 0.21. And so when we solve what's in the bracket, 1 minus 0.21, we get 0.79. So basically what they're asking us to do is, if this thing is on sale at 21% off, basically we have to pay 79%. So we can just find 79% of 618.95. And we should get 488.97 unless you do it on your calculator and find out that I've screwed it up. So any questions on what happened there? Okay, so keep this formula in mind because we're going to do a lot of stuff with it. So the first thing they do to us is they introduce the idea that we can have more than one discount. So they took this original formula that we just derived, N equals L 1 minus D. And now they tell us that we can have several discounts. In this question, we've got 3 discounts. So it's N equals the list price 1 minus D1, and then 1 minus D2, and 1 minus D3. So we just put one discount after the other, and we just multiply it out. So if we put our numbers in here, the list price is $461.99, 1 minus, so 39.5%, 1 minus 23.5%, and 1 minus 12.5%. And I find it way easier to do what's in these brackets first. So 1 minus 39.5%. This would give us 0.605, and don't round any of these off, otherwise it'll cause you grief. 1 minus 23.5%, 0.765, and 1 minus 12.5%. And this is 0.875. And now we're just going to go this times this times this times this to get our answer. So 461.99 times 0.605. So now we're down to 279, but we've got a further discount. So times 0.765, and then times 0.875. So I'm getting that N equals 187.09. And if you're trying this at home, let me know right away if you didn't get the same answer. So that's referred to as multiple discounts, and they don't seem to ever go any more than 3 discounts. So that's how to calculate it. Let's take a look at what else they can do. So here they've given us the item lists for this much. So this is the list price, and it's sold for this much. So they've given us the net price. And they're asking us to find the rate of discount, which is the little d. So think about the equations we have here. Yes, I heard a question. I can't understand what you're saying. Can you put it in the chat box? Did anybody understand what that question was? Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question. So I'm going to continue with my explanation of how this question works until you can put it in the chat box. So we're looking to find this little d. And remember, we looked at an equation that said the dollar value of the discount, is equal to the list, the list times the little d. So we can solve this for the little d. The little d is equal to the dollar value of the discount divided by the list. And in this case, because we don't know the dollar value of the discount yet, we'll look at the rate of discount is equal to the list minus the net divided by the list. And we'll go times 100 to turn it into a percentage. So let's take a look there. Once we're armed with this equation, we know the list is 482.95 minus the net of 362.21. That'll give us the dollar value of the discount, and we'll divide that by the list, 482.95, and we'll go times 100. So 482.95 minus 362.21 divided by 482.95. That didn't work at all. Let me try that again. 482.95 minus 362.21 divided by 482.95 and then times 100, and I'm getting 25.00051765. So I'm going to guess that they definitely wanted us to conclude this was 25%. So whenever you're looking for the rate of discount, remember, it's just this here. It's just the dollar value of the discount divided by the list. That will always give you the rate of discount. We're going to use that a lot in this chapter. Now, I was still unable to answer that question, so I'm hoping it'll appear in the chat box here, but it hasn't yet. So now they want us to come up with something called the single equivalent discount. The reason we need to know the single equivalent discount is because the discount if we added up these three discounts, that will give us a number that is not the single equivalent discount. The reason we can't just add them up and make them into one discount is because the 40% is off the list price. The 10% is only off the already discounted price. So it's not 10% off the list price. And the same thing with the 8 1/3%. It's not off the list price. So although we might want the customer to think that they're really getting a 58 1/3% discount, we might want to know exactly what discount they're really getting. So we have a few ways of calculating the single equivalent discount, but I find the easiest thing to do is just make up a list price of 100. And then just solve this and work with what you get. So we have a net price. The list price is 100. 1 minus 40%. 1 minus 10%. And 1 minus 8 1/3%. And again, do what's in these brackets first. This one is going to be 0.6. This was be 0.9. And this one's going to be kind of annoying, but we got to get it into the calculator anyway. 1 divided by 3 plus 8. And then hit the percent sign and take it away from 1. So this will be 0.916 repeating. And because of this repeating decimal, store this number so you can use it without rounding it off. So I'll store this one in register 1. And now we can go 100 times 0.6 times 0.9 times recall 1 equals, and I'm getting 49.50. So did anybody get a different answer there? So if we know the net price now and we know the list price, we can then find the dollar value of the discount is equal to 100 minus 49.50. So this is $50.50. And now we can use the same formula we just used. The dollar value of the discount equals D over L, which equals 50.5 over 100, and then times 100 to turn it into a percentage. And so that's the percentage they're getting. And notice, we already knew the percentage they're getting when we calculated the dollar value of the discount, because we specifically used a value of 100 for the list price. And because percents are out of 100 and our list price is out of 100, as soon as we get to here, we actually know our answer to our question. So I find that to be the easiest way to find the single equivalent discount. If you look in the textbook and on the formula sheet, they do give you another fairly complicated formula. But I find this is the easiest way to find the dollar value of the discount. Any questions there before we look at the next question? Okay, let's save that. So now they're going to try and confuse us with word problems. Discount Electronics lists an article for $1,020, less 25% and 15%. So we have two discounts, so we can figure out the net price right away. Net equals 1020, 1 minus 25%, 1 minus 15%. So do what's in the brackets first. This will be 0.75 and this will be 0.85. And so let's figure out what that net price is. 1020 times 0.75 times 0.85. So I'm getting 650.25. Now, a competitor carries the same article for 927 less 25%. So let's figure out what their net price is for the competitor. 927, 1 minus 0.25. So that's 0.75. 927 times 0.75. So 695.25. So what further discount, I'm not sure what we'll do with correct to 1/10 of 1%, must the competitor allow so that its net price is the same as the Discount Electronics net price. So these guys are looking at their 695 and they're saying, well, what do we have to do to get down to 650? So at this point, sort of in your head, restructure the question and put it in the form of, we know the list price is now the higher of the two prices, 695.25. The net price we're now saying is the lower of the two prices. And so we can figure out the dollar value of the discount as one minus the other. So 695.25 minus 650.25. So basically, they have to have a further discount of 45%. And the rate of discount, which is the little d, is the dollar value of the discount over the list. And so we're doing 45 over 695.25. and we'll go times 100 to turn it into a rate. So 45 divided by 695.25 times 100, and it turns out to be 6.472491909. So now 1/10 of 1%. So let's find out what that is. 1 divided by 10 times 1% equals. That's 1/10 of 1% equals 0.001. So that was just a really weird way of telling us they want to go to 3 decimals. So 472, this would be 6.472%. I don't know why they made it as confusing as that, but that's all it should boil down to. So we could check our answer, of course. We could put it back into this equation and see whether it really works. Let's try that. What did we have here? 927, 1 minus, oh, yeah. I see I've put a decimal here, which is ridiculous. It's not 0.25. 1 minus 25% and 1 minus 6.472%. This will become 0.75. And what do we get here? 6.472% is 0.93528. So we can multiply these now. 927 times 0.75 times 0.93528. And amazingly enough, that comes out to 650.25342, which would round off to 650.25, which is what we were hoping it would work out to. So any questions on what we were trying to do there? Again, we were looking for this little d, the rate of discount. And the rate of discount, remember, is always the dollar value of the discount over the list. Okay, let's save that and see what else they can do to try and ruin our day. Okay, they're going to stop torturing us with trade discounts, and now they're going to torture us with cash discounts. So So this is basically what cash discounts boil down to. The wholesale company, the company that is selling the stuff, they're actually shipping the stuff to the customer, and they're sending the bill, the invoice, and they're telling the customer that they can get an extra discount, had nothing to do with the trade discounts. This is an extra discount for paying the bill as soon as possible. And the sort of information is included in what they call the terms on the invoice. And what they're going to do is they're going to have some kind of numbers. Oh, we got the wrong question up here. How does that happen? Okay. Weird. Let's try finding the right question. So in this question, we can see what the terms on the invoice are. This is where they give us the terms on the invoice. It says 5 and 10, 2 and 30, and N in 60. And supposedly the customer knows what this means. What this means is they're getting a 5% discount if they pay the bill within 10 days. If they don't make the first 10 days, they can still get a 2% discount if they pay within 30 days. So they've got an extra 20 days to pay the bill and get a 2% discount. On the other hand, the N over 60 means that there's no discount between 30 days to 60 days, but the bill must be paid within 60 days or they start to charge interest. Not that we have to worry about that, because there are no situations in the textbook where they start to charge interest. But technically, that's what they're saying. You must pay within 60 days or we start to charge you interest. And so we're being told that the invoice is for $640. So we know the amount they owe is $6,400, not $640. And it's dated May 27. And for this situation, we're going to be doing what we call ordinary dating. Sounds more fun than it is. And ordinary dating with ordinary dating, the first day of the discount period is the day after the date on the invoice. So if we were to write these days out, which we don't really want to do, but we can see that this is May 27. So May 27, the first day would be May 28. That would be day one. When is the first day of the 5% discount? That would be May 28. The last day of the 5% discount. Start with the 27 plus 10 because it's 10 days, 5 and 10, and we get 37. But of course, May 37 makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. Take away all the days in May. 31 equals 6 May. So now we're at June 6th. So this would be the last day for the 5% discount. June 6th. Now, if we didn't trust what I've done here, let's take a look at what we'd have to do. We'd start with 28 being day one, 29, 30, 31, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So you could figure it out this way, but it's way easier to figure it out this way. Let's take a look at when is the first day for the 2% discount. Well, if day 10 here is the 6th, day 11 is going to be the 7th. So it's one day after. If we know this is June 6th, then this one is going to be June 7th. And the last day for the 2% discount, do the same thing. Go 27 plus, there's a 30 here. So 57. So we're at May 57. That's a big problem for us on this planet. So take away all the days in May. And what do we get? We get 26. And so we're now into the month of June. And June does have a 26. So this would be June 26. So when you're dealing with ordinary dating, just remember that the first day of the discount period is the day after the date on the invoice. Any questions you can think of asking at that point?
So could you repeat it?
Yes. We're dealing with the terms on the invoice, and when they give you the terms on the invoice, what they're telling you is when what kind of a discount you can get if you pay the bill within a certain number of days. So this 5 and 10, let's put it down here. When it says 5 and 10, means you get a 5% discount if you pay the bill within 10 days. And the 2 and 30, oops, that's not a 2. You get a 2% discount within 30 days. And in 60, you get no discount between day 30 and day 60, but within 60 days, or we charge interest. So that's what these terms up here that they refer to as the terms on the invoice mean. And when you're calculating the days, you don't want to be writing out all this nonsense. Just start with the day that you're told is the date on the invoice, May 27. And add, if it's 5 and 10, add 10 days. And you get 37. But of course, we know that May 37 doesn't exist. So take away all the days in May, which is 31, and we end up with 6. But now we've moved into June 6th. And so that would be the last day to get the last day for the 5% discount. For the 2% discount, do exactly the same thing. Start with the date on the invoice plus the 30 in this case equals 57, but we know there's no such thing as May 57. So remove all the days in May and we're now down to 26. But June 26 is okay. So that would be the last day for the 2% discount. Does that help?
Yes, sir. So, but about the and
We
no
could
discount.
we could find the date of N if we like. 27 plus 60 equals 87. Again, we know there's no 87. So minus 31, it's got to be 56, I hope. And we know there's no such thing as June 56. So take away all the days in June, which is 30. And we're left with 26. So this would be, we're June, now we're into July. So that would be the last day before interest is charged. Does that help?
Yes, sir.
Okay. It's not usually that important to calculate the n over 60 or whatever they tell you for n. It's usually, we're usually not worried about whether we're charging interest or not. So that was an example of ordinary dating, but unfortunately, they have other types of dating that we have to deal with. But first off, let's look at question number 7. So we're still dealing with ordinary dating here. And it tells us there was an invoice for this much dated June 18th with terms 6 in 15, 3 in 30, and n in 90. So the first thing you want to do is figure out the important dates. July 18 plus 15 equals 33. So July 33, not a very popular day, minus 31 equals 2, July, August. So that would be the last day for the 6%. Let's take a look at the next number. 18 plus 30 equals 48. So July 48, not much good to us, minus all the days in July. And I'm thinking that's 17, but let's make sure. 17. So August 17th, that's fine. So that would be the last day for getting the 3% discount. And let's find out about n. 18 plus 90 equals 108. Might be a popular day. July 108 might be a popular day on Jupiter. I don't know. So minus all the days in July. So 108 minus 31. And now we're at August 70. August 77. Again, not a very popular day. So minus 31 equals. And now we're into August, September. And we've got September 46. Again, a problem. So minus all the days in September. And we get 16. And now we're into October 16. So the last day before interest. So now that we know these important dates, let's take a look at what they've asked us. How much must be paid if the invoice is paid on August 1st? Did they get a discount on August 1st? Yes, because they could have gone to August 2nd. So on August 1st, they would be getting a 6% discount. And now, of course, we have to calculate the amount of the bill. $537.50, 1 minus 6%, so 0.94. They expect us to use that same formula that we just used. 537.5 times 0.94 So if they paid on August 1st, they'd have to pay 505.25. Take a look at part B, August 10th. They could have gone to August 17th. They've missed the 6% discount, but they definitely get the 3% discount. So the same calculation, 537.50, 1 minus 3%. So they're really paying 0.97% of the bill. So 537.50 times 0.97. 521.38. Let's take a look at part C, what happened to them. How much must be paid if the invoice is paid on August 25th? They've missed the 3% discount, but they're definitely not paying interest. So they have to pay the entire bill, but no discount. So any thoughts, concerns, cries of agony, moans of despair at that point?
Mr.
Okay,
Ram,
yes.
can you repeat what's on letter C? Why it's 537 and 50 cents again?
Why they get 6% and 3%?
No, why it's 537 and 50 for letter C?
Oh, well, the invoice up here in the question, they told us the invoice was for 537.50. And with these terms, so we start with they're paying 537.50, but in the first case, they paid it early enough to get a 6% discount. In the second one, they only got the 3% discount. Does that make sense?
Okay. Okay, thank you, Mr. Ram.
Yeah, they had to give us the amount of the invoice, and then we could calculate how much they had to pay, because they got the 6% discount or they got the 3%.
So in
Yeah.
C, why we would not take any interest rate?
Oh, because they weren't in time on August 25th. They didn't pay it early enough to get either the 6% or the 3%. So they didn't get either of the discounts, but they didn't pay it late enough to have to pay interest. So they just had to pay the basic amount of the bill.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So before we do anything else with this question, what they've done to us is they've change the terms of the invoice. Notice that the terms are 3 and 10, but it now says ROG. And so the terms of the invoice, the ROG means receipt of goods. And so now the first day of the discount period is the day after the goods arrive. So the two examples we did already dealt with ordinary dating. And with ordinary dating, there's no extra information up here. And so when it's ordinary dating, the first day of the discount period is the day after the date on the invoice. But when they tell us ROG, which is receipt of goods, now the first day of the discount period is the day after the goods arrive. And so in this case, in the question, they had to tell us the goods were received on May 12th. So we're not worried about the fact that it was dated March 20th. And we're not worried about the fact that the invoice was received on March 23rd. We're only worried about the date the goods were received, if it says ROG. So if the question says ROG, somewhere it must tell you the date the goods were received, even if they throw in some other dates to try and make it confusing. So we know the invoice amount. We know the terms are 3 and 10. And we know the goods were received on May 12th. So when is the first day of the 3% discount? So A, the first day for the 3% discount, if the goods were received on May 12th, this would be May 13. The last day for the 3% discount, start again with May 12th, because that's the date the goods were received, plus 10 equals 22. We're still in May, but May 22 is perfectly fine. So that would be the answer, because we haven't gone past the end of the month. So C, what payment must be made on May 22nd? Okay, we've just determined that that's the last day for them to get the 3% discount. So they do get the discount, and they've asked us what payment must be made to reduce the debt to 1,200. So with these questions, they're called partial payment questions. Always keep track of 4 pieces of information: the invoice, the payment, the credit, and the balance. And in this case, we know the invoice was 3,200. And if they're reducing the debt to 1,200, that must be the balance 1,200. And the relationship here is that the invoice minus the credit equals the balance. So the invoice is the amount of money they owe. The payment, P, is the amount of money they're paying. The credit is the amount of money we're taking off their bill. And the balance is how much is left. Let me put these up here just to make sure you are good with that. So we know the amount of the invoice and we know how much they're left owing. And if we take the invoice minus the balance, we'll get the credit. So 3,200 minus 1,200. We must have taken $2,000 off their bill. And so now we need to consider the relationship between the payment and the credit. And the payment, we're going to use this formula here, N equals L, 1 minus the discount. And the relationship here is the payment is the N, and the credit is basically the L. Treat the credit as if this is the list price and find out how much they would have to pay us in order to get us to take $2,000 off their bill. So we treat the credit as the list price. On the 22nd, we know they got 3%. So they only had to pay 97%. So find out what 97% of 2,000 is. Turned out to be 1,940. So now let's go over what happened there. They owed us 3,000, sorry, 3,200. They paid us 1,940. But because we're giving them a discount, we're actually going to take $2,000 off their bill. So if the entire bill had been $2,000, they could have settled it by giving us 1,940. But the entire bill wasn't 2,000, so they're still owing us $1,200. So now they're asking us a similar question, but we can ignore question C because they're saying what payment must be made on May 22nd to reduce the debt. And notice the little word here, by. They've changed this word. So they're trying to see if they can ruin your day here. But let's look at what we have to do for part D. Again, set it up with the invoice, the payment, the credit, and the balance. The invoice is 3,200 again. The payment we don't know, but if we're reducing the debt by 1,200, then this is the credit. And we can calculate the balance. We would still owe 2,000. And again, the relationship between the payment and the credit is N and L. So we can go back to this equation, N equals L, 1 minus D. But we've changed the credit to 1,200, 1 minus 3%, so 0.97. So they would have had to pay $1,164. So the reason this one is different from this one is because they've changed the word here. If it says reduce the debt to 1,200, the 1,200 becomes the balance. But if they say reduce the debt by 1,200, the 1,200 is the credit. And it says in part E, what will the balance be if a payment of 1,200 is made on May 22nd? So let's see if we can squish this one in here somewhere. E. So again, invoice, payment, credit, and balance. Always set these four up. And we know the invoice is 3,200. But in this case, they're telling us they made a payment of 1,200. And if they made the payment of 1,200, we still have to remember that this is N and this is L in this formula here. N equals L 1 minus D. But now they're telling us that the payment was 1,200. So we are now solving for L. So 1,200 over 0.97. So if they made a payment of 1,200, we're going to actually take off $1,237.11. And then we can find the balance because the invoice minus the credit will give us the balance. So not the easiest question in the world, because they've introduced this concept of receipt of goods. And they've introduced this concept of partial payments, which is very tricky. The next one also deals with partial payments. So unless there are any questions here, we'll jump on it. So the first thing we have to take note of is they're introducing another concept. Oops. Where we're being told something else about the terms. These are the terms 4 and 10, EOM, but EOM means end of month. So let's take a look at how that works. So with end of month, what they're telling us is the first day of the discount period is the first day of the next month. And so this usually makes the calculating of the discount period fairly easy. Let's take a look at the information we've been given. On January 15th, Sheridan Service received a shipment with an invoice dated January 14th. So we know the date that the invoice has on it for $2,592. So if it's January 14th, then the first day for the discount period, so A, the first day is the first day of the next month, January. It would be February 1st. That would be the first day. And part B, the last day would be February the 10th. It's usually easy to find the last day because it's the first 10 days of the next month. So the last day for the 4% discount would be February 10th. C, what are they telling us? By how much will so they've sent us a check. So this is their payment. So it's a partial payment problem. So always set up the 4 things you need for partial payment: invoice, payment, credit, and balance. And we know the invoice because they told us $2,592. They sent us a check. So this is the actual payment. So 1392. And so on February 9th, yes, they get the 4%. So we know they're getting a 4% discount. And we have to figure out the credit. And again, remember the relationship between the payment and the credit is the N and the L in our little formula. So N equals L 1 minus D, but the payment is 1392 and 1 minus 4%. So we can solve for the list price, L equals 1392 divided by 0.96. So 1392 divided by 0.96. So we're actually going to take $1,450 off their bill. And
Sir, can you write above the page because it's not visible?
can I write above the page?
Means near to the portion A, Fab 1. Can you do the calculation there?
You mean this formula
Yes.
down here? You
Yes,
you
yes.
can't see it on your screen?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay, that's weird. So I'll do it up here. I didn't realize you couldn't see that. You can see it up here?
Yes, sir. It's visible.
Okay. Thank you for letting me know that. So I enlarged my screen here. Maybe I shouldn't do that. Okay. So we took 1,400 off their bill, and we know the relationship between the invoice, the credit, and the balance. The invoice minus the credit equals the balance. So we're going to go 2592 minus 1450. And what do we get? I'm getting 1142. So that would be part C. That's how much will that $1,392 check reduce the debt? And for part D, how much does Sheridan Service still owe? That's what we figured out down here. This is the answer to part D. So remember, when they give you the terms on the invoice, there's three ways of doing it. Let me. So you have to be very careful when you look at the terms on the invoice. You have to see if there's nothing written there. When it's ordinary dating, there's basically just nothing, just a space there. If they want you to know it's receipt of goods, they have to put ROG at the end of the terms. And if it's end of month, they're going to put EOM there. But of course, it makes a lot of difference to when the discount period starts and ends, depending on whether it's EOM, ROG, or ordinary dating. So you have to be very careful to notice which one it is when you see a question.
We can get Feb 1 in A and B Feb 10.
In A and B,
Yes, sir. How it calculated that it's February 1.
oh, well, if it's EOM, see it says EOM up here? What EOM means, let's,
At the end of month.
it means, can't put that there. EOM means end of month. The first day of the discount period is the first day of the next month after the date on the invoice. So this invoice was dated January 14th, right? And the next month is February. So the first day is February 1st.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
And then, of course, the last day will be February 10th. It'll always start on day one and go. It might be 15, it could be 20, but it always starts on day one if it's end of month dating. Day one is the first day of the next month.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let's see what else they've done to us here. So what have they done here? They've told us something called Santucci Appliances received an invoice dated August 12th. So we know that it was dated August 12th, but it has terms EOM. So end of month. So August, the next month is September. The invoice period will be September 1st to September 10th. So we have to keep that in mind. And for the items listed below, there were 5 GE refrigerators at $980 each, less these 2 discounts. So these are trade discounts. We'll have to calculate those. And then English washers at $696, and they have 3 trade discounts. And A, what is the last day for taking the cash discount? So A, we know the first day is September 1st, and the last day would be September 10th. So they've got to pay the bill before September 10th to get the 3% discount. And B, what is the total amount due if the invoice is paid on the last day for taking the discount? So we know they're getting 3%, but now we have a whole bunch of work to do to figure out how much the bill is. There's 5 of these times 980. And they have 2 discounts. One minus 25% and one minus 5%. So let's figure out these brackets first. 5 times 980 is 4,900. This is 0.75 and this is 0.95. So let's go 4,900 times 0.75 times 0.95. So I'm getting 3,491.25. So that was for the refrigerators. We got to do the same thing for the dishwashers. There's 4 of them at $6.96. And there's 1 discount of 16 2/3. One minus, excuse me, 12.5%, and 1 minus 4%. Now this 16 2/3, that is one of those supposedly commonly known fractional equivalents. And they want you to make this into 1 minus 1/6. So this will basically become 5/6. One minus 12.5%. Let's find out 1 minus. This is oops, that didn't work. 1 minus. This is 0.875. And this is 0.96. So in order to get this all into my calculator, I'm going to start with 5 divided by 6 equals, then times 0.875 equals, then times 0.96 equals, and I'll have to store that, times bracket 4 times 696, end of bracket. So this came to 2,784 goals. And I came up with 1,948.80. And if anybody is checking that calculation, maybe you could let me know if I got the right number or not. Hopefully that works. Let's go with that. So the entire bill, we'd have to add these 2 up. 3,491.25 plus 1,948.80 what do we get? $5,440.05. And this is after having applied the trade discounts. But if they paid the bill in time to get the 3% discount, our actual net price they're paying would be 5440.05, one minus the 3%, which turns out to be 0.97. So they have to pay 97% of the bill. So I'm getting 5276.85. So I used up all my space, and that would be the answer to part B right there. So then they say, what is the total amount of the cash discount if a partial payment is made such that a balance of 2,000 remains outstanding on the invoice? So we'll move over to another piece of paper here. We have a bill of 5440.05. So because it's a partial payment, you always need to set up these four important pieces of information: the invoice, the payment, the credit, and the balance. And in this case, we figured out our invoice is 5440.05. And what have they told us? A balance of 2,000 remains. So they've been very clear that this is the balance of 2,000. So because we know that the invoice minus the credit equals the balance, we can use this relationship to figure out the credit. 5440.05 minus 2,000. We must have credited their bill with 3,440.05. And at this point, we have to remember that the payment is the N and the credit is the L. So if we have N equals L 1 minus D, we know our list price, which is our credit, is 3440.05. And they're getting the discount of 1 minus 3%. So we can calculate N now. This is 0.97. So they would have to send us a check for $3,336.85. So this would be our answer. That's how much they'd have to pay us to get us to take that much off the bill and leave a balance of 2,000. So any other questions about how that worked before we change horses totally and look at something totally different? So what we're doing in the next compound interest assignment I heard something. Might have been someone banging their head against the wall. I'm not sure. What we're doing in this compound interest assignment is very similar to what we did last week. We're still going to be calculating present value, future value, time period, rate of interest, and payment. But the only difference is last week we were dealing with simple annuities, and this week they've complicated it and we're dealing with general annuities. I sent you out the Excel spreadsheets. So let's go and find those spreadsheets and work with them. Let's figure out where those spreadsheets are hiding. Okay. So I'm hoping that you're now looking at a spreadsheet. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Let me see if I can enlarge it so we can actually see it. So here we have something called Bomac Steel. They set aside $50,000 at the beginning of every 6 months in a fund to replace equipment. If interest is 6% compounded quarterly, how much will be in the fund after 5 years? So notice that we're dealing with at the beginning. So this is an annuity due, but they're making the payments semi-annually every 6 months, but their compounding is quarterly. So that is making it into a general annuity. Now, so we need to calculate I, but whenever we're dealing with a general annuity, we need to calculate P, which is the periodic interest rate or the payment period interest rate. So P is equal to 1 plus I to the power of C minus 1. And this C is how we convert the compounding periods into payment periods. So what this tells us basically is for every compounding period, we get 2 payment periods. and it's always compounding divided by payment. And so once you get this value, I'm going to store it in register 3. When we use the Excel format here, they're giving us they'll let us calculate the future value, and the arguments here are rate, number of periods, payment, present value, type. The type is 1 now because it's annuity due. And because it's a general annuity, we have to calculate this letter P, right? We had to calculate it ourselves, which is annoying, which means that in this situation, we'll find the BA2 plus is much nicer, because here we have to calculate this number ourselves. And it still gives us the correct answer. But now let's take a look at the BA2 plus. Because it's a annuity due, make sure BGN is up. If it's not up, go second BGN, second set, and that little BGN has to be there. Because it's a general annuity, we have to put the compoundings per year in separately. So we go second, PY equals 2, because payments are semi-annual. But when we hit enter and the down arrow, the calculator gives us the opportunity to enter compounding periods per year separately. Otherwise, it automatically puts 2 in there. It assumes it's a simple annuity unless we tell it it's a general annuity. But we put 4 in there, enter, and hit clear a couple times. So for the BA2 plus, we have to calculate the number of payment periods. So let's go look and figure out where we got that 10 from. It's for 5 years, and it's twice a year. So that's where that 10 came from. Oops. So that's where that 10 came from, and we have to calculate that ourselves. The nice part about the BA2 plus is we don't need to calculate P. We can just put in the nominal interest rate that we're given, and the calculator knows that it's a general annuity because we told it up here. We put 0 in because there's no money in the investment to begin with. The 5,000 has to be negative because of the cash flow concept. We don't know the future value. That's what we're looking for. And we compute the future value, and we get $591,000.02, or 591 and $131.02, which is exactly what we got up here. So we're good to go. We could also calculate this by hand. We have this formula, and if we calculate P beforehand, we can calculate this. Would you like to see me do this on the whiteboard?
No.
No? Okay. If it doesn't work for you, please send me an email. But that's the formula, and it'll give you exactly the same number. So let's take a look at the next question we have here. So let's enlarge this. So what is the cash value of a lease requiring payments of $750 at the beginning of each month for 3 years if interest is 8% compounded quarterly? So at the beginning tells us it's a annuity due, and the payments are monthly, but the interest is compounded quarterly. So it's a general annuity. So we have to calculate I and C. In this case, I stored C because it's a repeating decimal. And then we can calculate P. And I stored that also because we're going to need it in the Excel calculation. So the Excel still is present value, and the arguments are still exactly the same as we had before. But the complicated part is, of course, that we have to calculate P ourselves and put it in here. It's still 1 because it's annuity due. And so that's still a fairly straightforward process if you're trying to do this on Excel, except now you have to calculate that rate P yourself. If we look at the BA2 plus, we have to have BGN up because it's annuity due. And we have to tell it that it's a general annuity. So we're going to enter PY equals 12, CY equals 4. We had to come up with this 36 ourselves. How did we do that? Let's go back up. It was monthly for 3 years. So monthly for 3 years equals 36. We have to calculate that separately. The nice thing is the interest, we don't have to put in the value of P, so we don't even need to calculate it. We just plug in our nominal rate, annual rate of interest, and the calculator figures it out for us. The 750 is a payment. It has to be negative. In this case, the future value is 0. Why is it 0? Because at the end of the time period, the lease has no value. Although we can figure that out for ourselves, we have to put the 0 in there for the calculator. Otherwise, it'll use whatever number was in there from the last calculation you did. And again, we have a formula that's very similar to our ordinary general annuity. We have to be using the value of P here, so we can't round it off. And it has this little 1 plus P tacked on the end because it's an annuity due. So we've got to add 1 period's worth of interest. I could do that calculation on a white sheet, or you can try it and let me know if it works for you. But that's the formula. And as long as you don't round off the value of P, you'll get exactly the same value as you got with the BA2 plus or with the Excel calculation. So any questions on that question before we look at the next one?
No, sir.
No, you should find these calculations fairly easy. Especially if you're using the BA2 plus, because it's exactly the same as you were doing last week, except we have to set the compounding periods separately. Let's look at the next one. So how much would you have to pay into an account at the beginning of every 6 months to accumulate to 10,000 in 8 years if interest is 7.5% compounded quarterly? So we see it's at the beginning, so we know it's annuity due. And we see that the payments are semi-annual, but the compounding is quarterly. So it's a general annuity. So because it's a general annuity, we have to calculate the value of P. So we have I, C, P. Sounds rude, but that's what we have to do. And then we're going to use the Excel formula for payment. And now the arguments are the rate, the number of periods, present value, future value, and type. And you have to make sure you set the type to 1 because you have to tell the computer it's an annuity due. And of course, the tricky part is you have to calculate the value of P yourself. Notice this thing's come back red in brackets, meaning it's negative, because the calculator is using the cash flow concept and the payments have to be negative. So it's trying to tell you this is negative. It doesn't mean it's a negative number. It's not a negative amount. It's just the cash flow concept. When we turn to the BA2 plus, the BGN has to be there. And we have to set the compound per year separately. So payments are semi-annual, compounding is quarterly. Did we get that right? Payments are semi-annual, compounding is quarterly. Good. We have to put 16 into N. Where did that 16 come from? Let's check the question. It's 8 years and it's twice a month, or no, twice a year. So we had to figure out the 16 on our own. And the interest is just the nominal interest rate. No money there to begin with. We don't know the payment, but we know the future value. And the calculator is still working with the cash flow concept. And it comes up with a negative number for the payment. Fairly straightforward, I hope. And the bad news is we could also do it by hand. We have a formula. The most tricky part of the formula is not rounding off this value of P. So you have to have it stored and use the stored value. You also have to know N, but that's fairly easy to figure out. And you should find that you get exactly the same answer as you got with the BA2 plus, or that you would have got if you plugged it all into the Excel formula. I'm hoping that you won't find that much difficulty with these calculations now that you've done similar calculations. Let's see what else they want to torture you with. So for how long must contributions of 1,600 be made at the beginning of each year to accumulate to 96,000 at 10% quarterly? So it's at the beginning, so we know it's annuity due. And the contributions are being made annually, but the interest is compounding quarterly. So it's definitely a general annuity. Because it's a general annuity, we've got to calculate P, and I'm going to store it. I don't really think I need to store the number 4, but it looks like I did anyway. So it's annuity due. We have to tell it that it's annuity due. We have to calculate this value ourselves. And we come up with an answer of 19.17. And we now have to figure out what this 19.17 means to us. This must be years because the payments were being made every year. So round this number up to the next whole number. Payments were annual, so this means 20 years. So we're making annual payments for 20 years, even though the last payment wouldn't have to be a full payment. So we turn to the BA2 plus. We make sure we can see that BGN is up because we know it's annuity due. We know we have to tell the calculator separately that the compounding is 4 times a year. We don't have to do anything funny with the interest. We just use the nominal annual rate given in the question. And when we compute for n, again, we get 19.17 something, and we round it up to 20. And we're interpreting it in exactly the same way because the payment periods were annual, so it must be 20 years. We can calculate this by hand if we want to. It's getting to look fairly ugly, but it's still possible to do so as long as you make sure you do not round off anything during the calculation. At the end of the calculation, you're going to round off to 20 and conclude that it's 20 years. But inside the calculation, make sure you've stored the value of P and you're never rounding off at any point. So let's take a look at the last one. And see what they've done to us here. So what is the nominal annual rate of interest compounded annually on a lease valued at 21,600 if payments of 680 are made at the beginning of each month for 3 years? So what do we know? It's annuity due because payments are at the beginning. It's a general annuity because compounding periods are annual, but the payments are being made monthly. So Excel will calculate the rate for us. It has this weird thing called guess down here, which we don't have to worry about. We still have to remember to tell it that it's annuity due. And we get this ridiculous number. Now, we have to figure out what this number means to us. And the annoying thing about this number is they've given us the value of P. When we use Excel in the other situations, we have to find P and put it in there. But now it's given us the value of P, which is really annoying because we were given a formula to find P right here. And we have to sort this formula out. So we have to solve it for I. So we end up with this ridiculous formula here, P, which they've given us, plus 1 to the power of 1 over C minus 1 equals I. So that was, as I said here, that was all sorts of annoying, but we have a formula we can use. We can calculate C as compounding periods 1 over payment periods 12, and we don't want to round it off. But it turns out the 1 over C just equals 12 anyway. And we come up with a value of I. So once we have I, we can multiply that value by 100 to get the nominal annual rate. And we rounded it to 4 decimal places. And we got I equals 9.1776. But that is just a monumental case of rectal agony that we had to do all this work to find I. When we turn to the BA2 plus, it's way easier. It's a annuity due, so BGN has to be up. And so we have to tell it that the compounding periods are separate from the payment periods. We had to come up with this 36. Let's look at the question again and figure out where we got the 36. Beginning of each month for 3 years. So 3 times 12 would be 36. So monthly for some reason, the BA2 plus makes us figure that out for ourselves. We don't know the interest. We do know the present value. We do know the payment. We have to tell the calculator the future value is 0. In other words, once we've paid this off, we don't owe anything. We compute interest per year. And notice the BA2 plus is much better than Excel here. It actually gives us the answer we want. So we didn't have to do all of this nonsense. Excel or the BA2 plus is nice enough just to give us the answer we're looking for.
So
And-
could you do it on calculator by
Yes.
sharing a screen?
Yes, let me just write down some of the details. 12, 1, 36, 2, 1, 6, 0, 0, 6, 80, 0. So let's go find the calculator. So can you see my calculator now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and I'll clear that. So notice I already have BGN up there because we were doing annuity due last week. So the BGN is already there. So I don't need to put it there. So the first thing I'm going to do is second PY, and I want 12 because payments are monthly, right? And go enter and hit the down arrow. And now it jumps over to CY. It's automatically put 12 in there, but we can force it to do something else. We want annual, compounding annually. So I go 1, enter the little equal sign, and then I can clear that a couple of times just to get rid of it. So we figured out that N was 36. So 36 into N. We don't know the interest per year, but we know the present value is 21600 into PV. And we know the payments are 680, but the cash flow concept says they have to be negative. So we put a negative sign and we put that into payment. And I don't know what might be in future value, but I know I want it to be 0. So now we can go compute interest per year, and we get 9.177632475. And that's the answer we want. We didn't have to convert it. Is that good?
Thank you, sir.
Okay. So the next thing we see is that if we look on our formula sheet and in our textbook, they have no formula for us to find the interest rate by hand. It's a trial and error process. And although I've seen someone try to do it, I couldn't say I know how to do it. I've never had to do it. I've always done it either on a computer or a calculator. And nobody on the planet expects you to do it by hand. It'll always be done on a computer or on a calculator. And it's way easier using the pre-programmed package on your BA2 Plus. So you don't have to do all that conversion from P into I. So aside from me, well, I will see you next week before you write the test, because the test that we're writing is not till Friday of the following week. So I'll urge you to study, but I won't wish you good luck yet. Any further questions on the material we looked at today? I actually think you'll find the chapter assignment, chapter 5, the first part of chapter 5, probably more difficult than the compound interest. the compound interest stuff, I think will work quite well. Because you've done similar calculations. I've recorded this session and I will try to email it to you, or I will post it on my YouTube site and I'll email you the link to it. So does anybody have any questions they want to ask at the moment?
No, sir.
Okay. In that case, I will see you next week. Some of you I will see on Monday, and presumably all of you I will see on Tuesday.
Thank you, sir.
So have a good week.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, take care.
You.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Don't hesitate to email me during the week if you have questions. I will try to answer them.
Thank you so much, sir.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
bye now. I still have two people here. Do you have questions? Or you just like to wait till I sign off? Okay. Take care.